The afternoon sun beat down hard on my Fifth Avenue as the executive shuttle bus stopped in front of the Grandelsia Hotel. Among the passengers who disembarked, a discreet figure drew attention for her absolute contrast to the luxurious scene surrounding her. Maria Valdez stepped onto the sidewalk carrying a worn plastic bag in her right hand. Her 58 years were marked by expression lines that told stories of hard work. A floral-patterned headscarf held her grey hair in a simple bun. She wore faded blue work pants, a white blouse that had seen better days, and white sneakers worn at the toes. It was the typical uniform of a cleaner. She paused for a moment on the sidewalk, observing the imposing facade of the hotel. Italian marble, mirrored glass revolving doors, a doorman in a red and gold livery, crystal chandeliers visible through the expansive windows. The Grandelsia was synonymous with sophistication, the kind of place where every detail whispered wealth. Maria adjusted the bag's handle on her shoulder and walked toward the main entrance with firm steps, despite the visible exhaustion in her body. The sun reflected off the revolving doors, creating an almost blinding glare. High-end cars paraded down the street. A silver Mercedes pulled up to the hotel, and an elegant couple emerged. She with designer sunglasses, he speaking into his phone in an executive tone. The valet ran to take the keys. Maria kept walking. That's when it happened. Matthew Thorne, the reception manager at the Grandelsia for 15 years, was positioned near the entrance, supervising the flow of traffic as he did every day. Tall black hair slicked back with gel, an impeccable navy Armani suit, an Italian silk tie, silver cufflinks. He was 42 years old and took particular pride in identifying the client profile with just a glance. It was this skill, he believed, that kept him in his privileged position. When his eyes landed on Maria Valdez, his face contorted into an expression mixing surprise and disdain. His lips curled into a smirk, the kind of smile that conveys no kindness, only superiority. He strode across the lobby and reached Maria before she got to the revolving doors. "Excuse me." Matthew's voice cut through the air with rehearsed authority. "The service entrance is at the back of the hotel. Employees do not enter through the main door." Maria stopped. She turned slowly to face him. Her brown eyes were deep, and in them there was a serenity that was disconcerting. There was no anger, no shame, just an unshakable calm. "I am not an employee," Maria said, her voice low but firm. "I'm here to check in." The silence that followed was awkward. Matthew blinked twice, processing the information. Then, as if someone had told him the best joke of the year, he let out a laugh. It started as a choked chuckle but grew into a genuine guffaw. "Check in?" he repeated, still laughing. "You here at the Grandelsia?" Other employees began to pay attention. Chloe, the young 23-year-old receptionist, looked from Matthew to Maria with growing discomfort. Ryan, another receptionist, looked away, pretending to be busy with paperwork. Guests passing through the lobby began to slow down, sensing that something was happening. "Exactly," Maria confirmed, her voice maintaining the same quiet tone. "I need a room." Matthew wiped an imaginary tear from the corner of his eye, still smiling. "Look, ma'am," he used the term with obvious condescension, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. This is the Grandelsia Hotel, 5 stars. Perhaps you're looking for something more suited to your budget. There's a very good motel 3 blocks from here." Maria didn't move. She didn't look away. She just waited for him to finish speaking. "I know the hotel," she said simply, "and this is where I want to stay." The tension in the air was palpable now. An older woman in a Chanel jacket stopped walking, watching the scene with poorly concealed interest. A businessman in a grey suit lowered the volume on his phone call to listen better. A young couple whispered something to each other. Matthew crossed his arms, his body language shifting to something more defensive, more territorial. The smile didn't leave his face, but his eyes hardened. "I see." He dragged out the words. "Do you have any idea how much one night costs here?" "No," Maria replied. "That's why I came to ask." Matthew let out a theatrical sigh and gestured toward the reception desk. "Very well, since you insist, let's go." He walked ahead, and Maria followed. The path to the reception desk seemed longer than it really was. The sound of Matthew's dress shoes on the marble resonated with authority. Maria's worn sneakers made a soft, almost inaudible sound. When they reached the desk, Chloe straightened her posture, nervous. Ryan continued to stare at the computer screen. Matthew positioned himself behind the counter, like a judge behind his bench, his fingers drumming on the polished marble surface. "So," he began, typing slowly, each key pressed with deliberate drama. "Our simplest room, Let's see. Costs $900 a night. That's without breakfast, which is another $75. Taxes and service fees are around $150. We're talking about approximately $1,125 per day. He paused, letting the numbers hang in the air. Would you like to make a reservation? The irony in his voice was crystal clear. Maria placed her plastic bag on the counter. The contrast between the wrinkled plastic and the polished marble was glaring. She rested her hands on the cold surface, and Matthew could see her calloused palms, her short, clean nails, but without any polish, the hands of someone who worked hard. "And what if I want the best room?" Maria asked. This time, Matthew truly looked surprised. His eyebrows shot up. "The best room, you mean the presidential suite?" "Yes." A younger woman passing through the lobby with luxury shopping bags stopped completely, turning to watch. Two of the hotel's security guards strategically positioned themselves closer, ready to intervene if necessary. Matthew leaned over the counter, lowering his voice to a tone of false confidentiality. "Ma'am, the presidential suite costs $4,000 per night. $4,000 plus taxes. We're talking about nearly $4,500 once a day." "I understand," Maria said. "And we require guarantees," Matthew continued, his voice rising again so others could hear. "A platinum credit card, a $500 deposit, full documentation. This hotel caters to a certain standard of clientele." It was at that moment that something flashed in Maria's eyes. It wasn't anger, it wasn't spite, it was something deeper, an understanding, a recognition of something she had seen many times before. "A certain standard," she repeated, not as a question, but as a statement. Matthew smiled, satisfied at finally being understood. "Exactly. You understand." "I understand perfectly," Maria said, and then, for the first time since she had entered, a small smile touched her lips. It was not a smile of submission. It was something else, something that made Matthew feel an inexplicable discomfort. He decided to end this ridiculous situation once and for all. "Look, I'm going to be honest with you, so as not to waste anyone else's time." He looked around, ensuring he had a sufficient audience. "How about we do this? If you can pay for our simplest room— wait, no, let's make it simpler. If you can pay now $200 in cash right here, right now, I will give you the presidential suite, for free, for 1 week." A murmur went through the onlookers. Chloe's eyes went wide with shock. Ryan finally looked up, incredulous. The woman in the Chanel jacket covered her mouth, scandalized. The businessman stopped his call completely. The security guards exchanged glances. Matthew was beaming, convinced he had delivered a perfect checkmate to this absurd situation. $200 in cash. Unlikely that a cleaner would carry that kind of money, and when she admitted she didn't have it, he would dismiss her politely, and everyone would learn a lesson about respecting the proper places for each social class. Maria picked up her plastic bag from the counter. For a second, Matthew thought she would finally give up, embarrassed, and leave the hotel admitting defeat. But Maria did not turn to leave. Instead, she opened the bag, and what happened next would change everything. Time seemed to slow down as Maria opened the plastic bag. Matthew watched with a confident smirk, already anticipating victory. The others in the lobby held their breath, like spectators at a duel about to be decided. Maria reached into the bag. There was no hurry in her movements. Every gesture was measured, deliberate. She showed no nervousness or shame, only a calmness that was beginning to unsettle Matthew more than he'd like to admit. From inside the bag, Maria pulled out a worn-out leather wallet. It wasn't elegant, not a brand name. It was the kind of wallet bought at a street market and used for years until the seams began to give way. Faded scribbles from a ballpoint pen were visible on one of the flaps. Matthew barely managed to hold back another laugh, but then Maria opened the wallet and began to count bills. Crisp $100 bills, new and perfectly organized, began to appear on the marble counter. $1, $2, $200. The silence that fell over the lobby was deafening. Matthew blinked, staring at the money as if it were a mirage. His mouth opened and closed twice without a sound. The confident smile had evaporated from his face, replaced by an expression of genuine shock. Maria arranged the bills in a neat little fan, pushing them gently toward Matthew. $200, she said in the same calm voice. In cash, as we agreed. Chloe pressed a hand to her chest, her wide eyes darting between the money and Maria. Ryan dropped a pen on the floor but didn't bend to pick it up. The woman in Chanel took a step forward, fascinated. The businessman moved closer, pocketing his phone completely. Matthew froze. His hands remained on the edge of the counter, rigid. He looked at the money, then at Maria, then back at the money. His brain seemed unable to process the situation. He stammered. "You actually... A bet was made," Maria interrupted gently. "You said that if I paid $200 in cash, I would get the presidential suite for a week. For free." She tilted her head slightly. "I'm waiting." Matthew's face went through several shades of red. First a pale pink of surprise, then a red of embarrassment, finally a dark red of contained anger. His hands clenched into fists on the counter. "It was a joke," he said, his voice coming out higher than he intended. "It didn't sound like a joke," Maria replied. "It sounded like a clear proposal, made aloud in front of witnesses." She gestured vaguely around her, where at least a dozen people were now watching intently. "I agree with the lady," a female voice rang out. It was the woman in the Chanel jacket who advanced another step. "I heard it clearly. The manager offered the suite for a week in exchange for $200 in cash." She looked directly at Matthew with a severe expression. "And the lady has paid." "I heard it too," added the businessman, crossing his arms. It was a rather specific proposal. Matthew felt the floor open up beneath him. He looked desperately at his colleagues, searching for support. Chloe looked away, biting her lower lip. Ryan found something extremely interesting to observe on the ceiling. "You're not understanding the situation," Matthew tried, his voice taking on an almost pleading tone. "I just meant to make a hypothetical comparison. It wasn't meant to be taken literally." "Hypothetical?" Maria raised her eyebrows slightly. "You specified the exact amount. You said, in cash, right here and now. You offered the presidential suite for a week. Was there anything hypothetical about that?" A man in shorts and a polo shirt who had just entered the hotel stopped to watch the scene. Whispers began to circulate. Some guests pulled their phones from their pockets, not necessarily recording but definitely ready to. Matthew felt a cold sweat run down his temple. He was the reception manager. He had authority. He had power. But at that moment, with all those eyes on him, with that money on the counter, with that woman dressed as a cleaner looking at him with unshakable serenity, he felt that power slipping through his fingers like sand. "Look, ma'am," he tried again, his voice lower, trying to sound reasonable. "Surely you understand that this was a misunderstanding." "I understand perfectly," Maria said, and there was something in her tone that made Matthew flinch. "I understand that you tried to humiliate me. You tried to embarrass me in public. You bet that a woman like me wouldn't have money." She lightly touched the bills on the counter. "But I do. And now you need to honor your words." "This is ridiculous," Matthew snapped, his mask of professionalism finally shattering. "I am the manager of this hotel. I am not going to give a $4,500 a night suite to a... He stopped abruptly, realizing he was about to say something he couldn't take back. "To a what?" Maria asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "Finish the sentence." The silence that followed was so thick it seemed to have physical weight. No one moved. No one breathed. Everyone waited. Matthew opened and closed his mouth several times. His face was completely red now. He looked around desperately, searching for an escape, any escape. It was then that the woman in Chanel stepped forward, placing her leather handbag on the counter next to the $100 bills. "Mr. Manager," she said, her voice aristocratic but firm, "I have been a guest at this hotel for over 10 years. I have always admired the excellence of the service. But if this establishment does not honor its own commitments, if it mocks customers based only on appearances," she paused significantly, "then perhaps it's time for me to reconsider my loyalty." "I also stay here regularly," added the businessman, "and I'll be honest, what I'm seeing right now is shameful for the hotel." Matthew felt real panic for the first time. Losing VIP guests over a stubborn cleaner, that would be a disaster. His job would be in danger. His reputation destroyed. But to give in, to give away the presidential suite for free, how would he explain that to management? How would he justify losing thousands of dollars over a stupid bet? He was trapped, absolutely trapped. Maria was still there, motionless, waiting. There was no triumph on her face, no malicious satisfaction, just the quiet expectation that justice be done. Chloe cleared her throat gently. When Matthew looked at her, the young receptionist pointed discreetly at the computer. "Mr. Thorne," she said in a low voice, but not so low that some couldn't hear, "the presidential suite is available this week. There are no reservations." It was the final blow. If the suite had been occupied, he would have an excuse, but empty. There was no technical justification to refuse, only his own arrogance. Matthew closed his eyes for a long moment. When he reopened them, there was resignation and hatred in equal parts in his pupils. "Very well," he said, each word coming out as if it were being forcibly torn from him. "A bet was made, and I am a man of my word." He snatched the bills from the counter and began typing on the computer with unnecessary force, each key being punished for his frustration. "I'll need an ID," he said sharply. Maria opened her wallet again and took out her driver's license. She placed it on the counter. Matthew grabbed the document and began typing in the data. His eyes fell on the full name, address, date of birth. As he typed, he spoke aloud, deliberately loud, so everyone could hear. "Maria Valdez," he read with disdain, "resident of Kingston, New York." A cruel smile touched his lips. "From upstate, huh? First time in a real hotel?" Maria didn't answer. She just held his gaze. Matthew finished the registration and grabbed a magnetic keycard from the drawer. He programmed it with exaggerated movements, then tossed it onto the counter in Maria's direction with little ceremony. "Presidential suite, penthouse floor, last door on the right." He practically spat the words. "7 nights, free, as we agreed." Maria calmly picked up the keycard. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," Matthew growled, "and don't get used to it. After this week, people like you go back to where you belong." There was a collective gasp from those present. Some seemed genuinely shocked by the explicit rudeness. The woman in Chanel shook her head, disappointed. The businessman jotted something down on his phone. Maria put the keycard, her ID, and the wallet back into the plastic bag. She picked up the bag and slung it over her shoulder. Before turning to walk toward the elevators, she looked at Matthew one last time. "You're wrong about one thing," she said softly. "I don't come from a different place than you. We are all just people trying to live with dignity. The difference," she paused, "is that some of us remember that, others forget." And then Maria Valdez walked across the luxurious lobby of the Grandelsia Hotel, her worn sneakers making that soft sound against the marble, her plastic bag swinging slightly, her head held high with a dignity that no uniform could diminish. Guests moved aside to let her pass. Some watched her with renewed curiosity, others with discreet respect. Some clearly wondering who this woman was, who had challenged and defeated the fearsome manager of the Grandelsia. When Maria stepped into the elevator and the doors closed, it was as if the entire lobby let out a collective breath. Matthew remained behind the counter, trembling with contained rage. His fists were clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He could feel the stares of the others on him, judgment, disapproval, pity. The elevator doors opened to reveal a hallway unlike anything Maria had seen on the floors below. The carpet was a deep burgundy, so soft that her sneakers practically sank into it. The walls were covered with textured wallpaper in shades of ivory and gold. Crystal sconces hung from the ceiling at regular intervals, creating soft, welcoming light. Maria walked slowly down the hall. There were only 4 doors on this floor, 2 on each side, indicating the suites were immense. Paintings in gilded frames decorated the walls, not cheap reproductions but original artwork. She recognized a Warhol print, another that looked like a C. de Kooning. Last door on the right. Maria stopped in front of the double mahogany carved doors. There was a small polished metal plaque, Presidential Suite. She held the keycard for a moment, looking at it. A simple piece of plastic that opened doors to a world that, she knew better than anyone, had been built to exclude people like her, or at least people who looked like her. She swiped the card. The green light blinked. The lock clicked. Maria pushed the door open. What she saw made her stop on the threshold. The suite was extraordinary. The door opened directly into a living room that was easily 500 square feet. Polished marble floors were covered by authentic Persian rugs. An L-shaped Italian leather sofa, in a cream tone, dominated the center of the room, facing a flat-screen TV of at least 70 inches mounted on the wall. A glass and mahogany coffee table held a fresh floral arrangement, white roses and lilies. Large floor-to-ceiling windows took up the entire opposite wall, offering a panoramic view of the city. The afternoon sun streamed in golden shafts, making the marble shine. Silk curtains in champagne tones could be closed for privacy, but now they were open, framing the view like a living painting. To the left, a mahogany dining table for 8 people, velvet-upholstered chairs. A baccarat crystal chandelier hung over the table, its prisms refracting light into small rainbows that danced on the walls. To the right, a full bar with glass shelves displaying bottles of liquor that Maria knew cost more than many people earned in a month. 50-year-old Scotch whiskey, French champagne, premium Russian vodka. Maria entered slowly, her eyes taking in every detail. The sound of the door closing softly behind her was almost inaudible. Even the air seemed different here. There was a faint scent of lavender, probably from some sophisticated aromatherapy system. She walked through the room, her fingers lightly touching the back of the leather sofa. So soft, so luxurious. She approached the windows and looked down. From the height of the penthouse floor, she could see the entire city. The streets were thin lines, the cars looked like toys, the people were just moving dots. From where she stood, everything looked small, distant, as if it were a completely separate world. She turned and continued exploring. There was a door to the left that led to the master bedroom. Maria opened it and held back a gasp. The bed was enormous, a special king size. It was covered with high-quality white Egyptian cotton sheets, with at least half a dozen pillows arranged artfully. A cashmere wool blanket was folded at the foot of the bed. Rosewood nightstands on either side with crystal lamps. A plush, high-pile rug covered the floor around the bed. Across the room, another wall of windows offered the same spectacular view. There was also a smaller television, a chaise lounge, and a mahogany desk with an ergonomic leather chair. Maria sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress yielded perfectly under her weight, firm but extremely comfortable. She ran her hand over the sheets. They were so smooth they seemed to glide under her fingers. For a moment, just a brief moment, Maria felt the weight of the last 30 years on her shoulders. 30 years cleaning rooms like this. 30 years changing Egyptian cotton sheets for others to sleep on. 30 years vacuuming Persian rugs, polishing marble, cleaning panoramic windows, arranging pillows that would never be hers. How many suites like this had she prepared for guests who didn't even look at her, who saw nothing but a blue uniform and a headscarf, who treated the woman who guaranteed their comfort as invisible? Maria stood up, pushing those memories aside. This was not the time for bitterness. Not after having come this far, not after everything she had built. She continued her exploration. The bathroom was larger than the room she had slept in for years when she was young. Carrara marble covered every surface. A whirlpool tub occupied one corner, large enough for 2 people. A transparent glass shower stall with multiple jets. Rain shower head, side jets, a handheld shower, 2 sinks with gold-plated faucets, a huge mirror lit with soft LED light. Designer bath products were lined up perfectly. Shampoo, conditioner, body wash, body lotion, bath salts. Fluffy white bathrobes hung from chrome hooks. Stacked towels, not just towels but real hotel towels, thick, plush, the kind that absorb water like magic. Maria picked up a bottle of lotion, Chanel. She opened it and smelled the delicate scent. She put it back in its place. She returned to the living room and found more doors. A walk-in closet that was larger than many entire apartments, with aromatic cedar shelves and gleaming chrome rods. A guest powder room. A smaller office with a computer, printer, and fax machine. Finally, Maria returned to the main living room and allowed herself to sit on the Italian leather sofa. The view from the window showed the sun beginning to set. The golden afternoon light painted the city's buildings in shades of amber and honey. Delicate clouds floated in the sky, tinged with pink and orange at the edges. Maria placed her plastic bag on the sofa next to her. The contrast was almost comical. That worn, patched bag she had used for years, now resting on Italian leather that cost more than a compact car. She thought of Matthew, of his expression when she put the money on the counter, of the way he tried to retract the bet, of the poorly concealed hatred in his eyes when he was forced to give in. Maria didn't feel triumph. She only felt a deep sadness. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Maria got up, smoothed her blue work pants, and walked to the door. When she opened it, she found a young man carrying a silver tray. He couldn't have been more than 25, wore an impeccable room service uniform, and had a professional smile plastered on his face. "Good evening, ma'am. I've brought the suite's complimentary welcome amenity. May I come in?" Maria nodded and stepped aside. The young man entered, carrying the tray carefully. He placed it on the coffee table. Maria could now see what it contained. A bottle of champagne. In an ice bucket, 2 crystal flutes, a plate of artfully prepared canapés, a basket of fresh fruit, and a box of artisanal chocolates. "The champagne is a Dom Perignon," the waiter explained, as he arranged everything perfectly. "The canapés were prepared by our executive chef, The fruits are organic, picked this morning, and the chocolates are from a local artisanal chocolatier in Brooklyn. He finally looked directly at Maria, and she saw his eyes quickly scan her cleaner's uniform. To his credit, the young man didn't let his smile waver for a second. "If you need anything, ma'am, anything at all, you can call reception or use the internal phone. The number for suite service is 9. Someone will be available 24 hours a day." "Thank you," Maria said softly. The waiter nodded and headed for the door. But before leaving, he hesitated. He turned back to Maria. "Ma'am," he began, his voice lower, more personal. "I don't mean to be nosy, but—" He glanced quickly down the hall, making sure they were alone. "The entire hotel staff is talking about what happened in the lobby, what Mr. Thorne did." Maria waited, saying nothing. "I just wanted you to know that not all of us think like him. Some of us," he chose his words carefully, "some of us know what it's like to be judged by appearances, and we think you were very brave." Maria felt something tighten in her chest. "What's your name?" "Ricky, ma'am." "Thank you, Ricky. Your kindness means more than you know." The young man smiled, this time a genuine smile. "Enjoy your stay, ma'am. You deserve it." When the door closed, Maria returned to the sofa. She picked a grape from the fruit basket and put it in her mouth. The flavor exploded on her palate. Sweet, juicy, perfect. As she ate, she watched the view. The sun continued its gradual descent. The shadows of the buildings lengthened. The city began to turn on its lights. And Maria thought about the journey that had brought her here. Not just the journey of that day, but the journey of a lifetime. That night, after a long bath in the whirlpool tub, Maria put on the hotel's white bathrobe and sat on the suite's private balcony. The city glittered below her like a carpet of earthly stars. She held a cup of chamomile tea she had prepared using the suite's premium capsule machine and allowed herself to sink into memories she usually kept well guarded. She was born in Kingston, New York, a small city where everyone knew everyone. Her family were immigrants, working in factories, living from paycheck to paycheck. 6 siblings, a 2-bedroom apartment, food that wasn't always guaranteed. But her mother, Josefina, had an unshakable faith in education. "Study, Maria," she always said. "Study like your life depends on it, because it does." Maria studied, by the light of a dim lamp, because the power was often shut off, waking up at 4 in the morning to help with chores before school, doing homework on any scrap of paper she could find. She managed to finish high school, then community college, working during the day and studying at night. And then, at 18, she came to the city, a cardboard suitcase, $100 in her pocket, and dreams bigger than the city itself. Her first job was as a cleaner at the Hotel Imperial, a 3-star establishment in Midtown. She cleaned rooms 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. She earned minimum wage. She lived in a rented room in Queens with 6 other girls. But Maria watched. She learned. She asked questions. How did a hotel work? How were decisions made? What made guests happy? What made them come back? How was profit calculated? How was staff managed? For years, while she vacuumed and changed sheets, she absorbed knowledge. She talked to managers when they allowed it. She read hotel management magazines she found left behind. She asked discreet questions, and she saved every penny. She didn't buy new clothes, she didn't go out for fun. She didn't spend on anything that wasn't essential. 10 years cleaning rooms, 10 years of being invisible, 10 years of saving. When she finally had enough money, she bought a small 3-bedroom house in a working-class neighborhood in Brooklyn. She renovated it. She turned it into a boarding house for workers. Nothing fancy, just clean, safe, and honest. It worked. People came. Construction workers, street vendors, cleaners like herself. People who needed a decent, affordable place. With the profit from the first boarding house, she bought a second, then a third, then a small 20-room hotel. 20 years after that first day as a cleaner, Maria Valdez was the owner of a small chain of budget hotels in 3 states. Nothing comparable to the Grandelsia, but enough to provide a comfortable life and employ over 100 people. But Maria never stopped working with her own hands. Every week she still put on her cleaner's uniform and personally cleaned rooms in her own hotels. "Why do you do that?" her managers would ask. "You're the owner. You don't need to clean rooms." "Yes, I do," Maria always replied. "I need to remember where I came from. I need to ensure our standards are maintained. And I need my employees to know that no job is beneath me." It was a simple philosophy that guided all her businesses. Treat every employee with respect, pay fair wages, offer opportunities for growth. Because Maria remembered. She remembered being invisible. She remembered being treated as less than human, and she swore that no one in her hotels would be treated like that. Now, sitting on the balcony of the presidential suite at the Grand Elsia, Maria smiled to herself. Coming to this hotel had not been an accident. It had been deliberate. In recent months, she was considering expanding her business, perhaps acquiring a larger, more sophisticated hotel. The Grand Elsia was for sale. The parent company was divesting some assets. Maria had studied the financial reports, analyzed the operation, but the numbers on paper didn't tell the whole story. She needed to see it for herself. She needed to understand the culture of the place. And what better way than to experience it as an ordinary guest? Well, not exactly ordinary. She had deliberately chosen to come dressed in her work uniform. She wanted to see how she would be treated. She wanted to understand if this hotel, so luxurious on the outside, had values on the inside. And what had she discovered? Matthew, a manager who judged people by their appearance, who humiliated them publicly, who saw some humans as more worthy than others. But she had also seen Chloe, uncomfortable with her boss's actions, Ricky offering kind words, Mrs. Vance and the businessman defending what was right. There was goodness here, but there was also rot. The question was, which weighed more? Maria finished her chamomile and went back inside. It was late and tomorrow would bring new developments. She didn't know it yet, but her presence in the hotel was already causing ripples that would spread far beyond the lobby. The next morning, Maria woke to the sun streaming through the suite's windows. For a moment, disoriented, she didn't recognize where she was. Then the memories of the previous day returned. She got up, dressed again in her cleaner's uniform. She had washed it in the bathroom sink and let it dry overnight, and went down to the hotel restaurant for breakfast. The restaurant was as luxurious as the rest of the hotel. High ceilings, chandeliers, tables covered with impeccable white linen tablecloths, a buffet stretched along an entire wall, fresh fruits, artisanal breads, cured meats, special cheeses, fresh juices, omelette and waffle stations. When Maria entered, some waiters stopped to look at her. Whispers circulated. She could feel the stares. A young maitre d' approached, his expression professional but cautious. "Good morning. Are you a guest, ma'am?" "Yes." "Presidential suite." The maître's eyes widened slightly. "Ah, yes, Ms. Valdez, correct? Please follow me." He led her to a table near the windows overlooking the hotel's garden. Maria sat, and immediately a waiter appeared with coffee and water. "The buffet is at your disposal, ma'am. Feel free." Maria got up and walked to the buffet. She could feel the eyes of other guests. Some were discreet, others more obvious in their curiosity. A woman in a Prada dress whispered something to her husband, who looked in Maria's direction and shook his head. Maria served herself fresh fruit, toast with avocado, cottage cheese, a little jam. Nothing extravagant. She returned to her table. She was finishing her meal when she heard a voice behind her. "Excuse me." Maria turned. It was the woman in the Chanel jacket from yesterday, now dressed in an elegant beige linen suit. "Yes," Maria replied. "I just wanted to formally introduce myself. My name is Eleanor Vance. Yesterday in the lobby," she paused, "I was impressed with your dignity." Maria gestured to the empty chair. "Would you like to sit?" Eleanor accepted, seating herself gracefully. A waiter immediately approached to serve her coffee. "I must admit," Eleanor continued, "I spent a good part of last night thinking about the incident. I've been a guest at this hotel for over a decade. I've always admired the service, but yesterday," she shook her head, "it was unacceptable." "Mr. Thorne was doing what many people do," Maria said calmly, "judging a book by its cover." "That doesn't make it right," Eleanor retorted, "and frankly, it made me question the values of this establishment. I have already sent a formal email to management expressing my concern." Maria studied the woman in front of her. She must have been in her 60s, with perfectly cut silver hair, subtle but flawless makeup. But there was something genuine in her eyes, a real indignation. "May I ask," Eleanor said, "what brought you to the Grand Elsia? Don't get me wrong, you have every right to be here, but I'm curious." Maria considered for a moment. "I came to see the hotel." "To see it? To see how it works, how people are treated, the values of the place." Eleanor tilted her head, intrigued. "That's interesting. Are you in the hotel industry?" "Yes," Maria confirmed, "on a smaller scale." "Fascinating." Eleanor took a sip of coffee. "So yesterday was, what, a type of test?" "Not exactly a test, but an opportunity to see the true face of things." Eleanor laughed softly. "Well, Mr. Thorne certainly revealed his true face, and it wasn't pretty." At that moment, as if summoned by the mention of his name, Matthew entered the restaurant. He was making his morning rounds, checking that everything was in order, greeting important guests. When his eyes landed on Maria, sitting at a table with Eleanor Vance, his expression hardened. He hesitated, clearly debating whether he should approach. Eleanor, noticing, turned and made direct eye contact with him. Then deliberately she made an inviting gesture. "Mr. Thorne," she called, her voice carrying authority. "Join us, please." Matthew had no choice. He approached the table, his face a mask of professional cordiality, but his eyes betraying his discomfort. "Mrs. Vance, Ms. Valdez." He greeted them with a short nod. "I hope you are enjoying your breakfast." "I am," Eleanor said, "although I must say my appreciation for this hotel in general has been tarnished by yesterday's events." Matthew's face flushed. "Mrs. Vance, I can explain." "There's no need for explanations," Eleanor interrupted. "Actions speak louder than words, and your actions yesterday spoke volumes. I was simply trying to maintain the hotel's standards." Matthew defended himself, his voice tense. "Standards?" Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "Is it the Grandelsia's standard to publicly humiliate guests? To make cruel bets? To judge people by their appearance?" Matthew looked around nervously. Other guests were starting to pay attention. His voice lowered. "Mrs. Vance, please. We don't need to discuss this here." "Oh, but we do," Eleanor said firmly, "because what happened yesterday wasn't a private incident. It was public, and it deserves to be discussed publicly." Maria gently placed her hand on Eleanor's arm. "It's kind of you to defend me, but it's not necessary." Eleanor looked at Maria, then nodded respectfully. "As you wish." Matthew seized the opportunity to escape. "If you'll excuse me, I have other responsibilities." "Mr. Thorne," Maria's voice stopped him. He turned slowly. "I'd like to make a request." He waited, tense. "I would like to take a tour of the hotel's facilities today. The operational areas, kitchens, laundry, employee zones. Would that be possible?" Matthew blinked, confused. "The operational areas? Why?" "I'm curious. I like to see how things work behind the scenes." "That is highly irregular," Matthew began. "Those areas are restricted. I am a guest in the presidential suite," Maria reminded him gently. "Surely that affords me some privileges." Matthew opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He was clearly looking for a reason to refuse, but couldn't find one that didn't sound even worse. I suppose it can be arranged," he said grudgingly. "I'll assign someone to accompany you. At 2 o'clock? Perfect. Thank you." Matthew practically fled the restaurant. Eleanor looked at Maria with growing admiration. "You are fascinating, you know. Most people in your position would be focused on revenge. But you want to see the laundry room." Maria smiled. "You learn a lot about a place by how it treats its rank-and-file employees. They are the heart of any hotel. If the heart is sick, the whole body suffers." "Wise," Eleanor commented. "Very wise." 2 hours later, Maria was in the lobby waiting for her guide. To her surprise, it wasn't Matthew who appeared, but Chloe T., the young receptionist. "Good afternoon, Ms. Valdez," Chloe greeted her with a genuine smile. "Mr. Thorne asked me to accompany you on the tour." "How nice," Maria said. "What's your full name?" "Chloe Mendez. I've been working here for 2 years." "And you like it?" Chloe hesitated. "Most of the time, yes. It's a beautiful hotel. The guests are usually polite." Another pause. "But there are challenges." "I can imagine," Maria said softly. "Shall we?" Chloe led Maria through a door marked "Staff Only." Immediately, the atmosphere changed. The hallways were functional, without decoration. The floor was grey linoleum instead of marble. The lights were fluorescent instead of chandeliers. "First stop, the kitchen," Chloe announced. The kitchen was enormous and impeccably organized. Stainless steel gleamed under intense lights. Chefs in white uniforms worked at different stations, one preparing sauces, another cutting vegetables, another plating dishes. The executive chef, a burly man in his 50s with a thick mustache, approached when he saw them enter. "Chef Antoine," Chloe introduced. "This is Ms. Valdez, a guest in the presidential suite. She'd like to see our operations." Chef Antoine looked surprised but smiled. "Welcome. We don't get many guests down here. Are you interested in cooking?" "In efficiency," Maria replied. "How do you manage an operation of this size?" The chef's eyes lit up. Clearly, he loved talking about his work. For the next 20 minutes, he explained the systems, the logistics, how orders were processed, how quality was maintained. Maria listened attentively, asking insightful questions that showed a real understanding of hotel operations. Chef Antoine was impressed. "I really understand this business," he commented. "I work in the sector," Maria said simply. The next stop was the laundry. The heat was intense. Industrial machines spun constantly. Employees, mostly women, folded towels, sheets, uniforms at an impressive speed. A woman in her 40s, her hair tied up in a net, approached. "Can I help you?" "This is Vera," Chloe introduced. "Laundry supervisor." Maria extended her hand. "A pleasure, Vera. How many people work here?" 12 on the day shift, 8 at night. "And how many pieces do you process a day?" "About 3,000 pieces, between sheets, towels, uniforms, tablecloths." Maria walked through the laundry, observing. She stopped to talk with some of the employees. She asked them how they were, if the work was very heavy, if they had adequate breaks. The women, surprised by the attention from a guest, answered shyly at first. But Maria's genuine kindness made them feel more comfortable. "It's hard work," one admitted, "but it's honest, and the pay is fair." "Do you have benefits? Health insurance?" "We do," Vera replied. "The hotel offers basic insurance for all permanent employees." Maria nodded but noticed something. "And the temporary workers?" Vera looked away. "They don't get the same benefits." "How many temps do you have?" 6, almost half the team. Maria made a mental note. Chloe watched the interaction with growing curiosity. The next stop was the storeroom, then the employee locker rooms, simple but clean, then the maintenance area, where 3 men were working on various repairs. At each stop, Maria chatted with the workers. She asked about conditions, wages, treatment, and people talked, perhaps because she was wearing a cleaner's uniform, perhaps because there was something in her presence that inspired trust. Stories emerged. Some good, the hotel paid on time, there was stability. Some less good, unpaid overtime, constant pressure, favoritism. And one name appeared repeatedly in the complaints. Matthew. "He treats us like furniture," one of the maintenance men said. "Not like people. If you make a mistake, he yells at you in front of everyone," added one of the laundry workers. "It's humiliating. He plays favorites," commented another. "If you're not one of his preferred people, you can forget about a promotion." Chloe listened to it all in silence, her discomfort visible. Finally, Maria asked to see the housekeeping department, the room cleaning. Chloe took her to a hallway where the cleaning carts were lined up. 3 women in uniforms identical to the one Maria was wearing were there, restocking their carts for the next round. "This is Joanne, Brenda, and Crystal," Chloe introduced. "Our housekeeping team for the 10th floor." The 3 women looked at Maria, and something passed between them, a recognition, a silent sisterhood of people who did the same job. "How many rooms do you clean a day?" Maria asked. 15 each, replied Joanne, the oldest. "On good days. 17, 18 on bad ones." "That's a lot," Maria commented softly. "It is," Brenda nodded, "but it's the hotel's standard. If you can't keep up, there are people in line waiting for your job." Maria ran her hand over the cleaning cart, looking at the products, the cloths, the stacked clean towels. "Do you have the right equipment? Gloves, quality products?" "More or less," Crystal said diplomatically. "Sometimes we're short on something, and we have to improvise." "And when you get injured? Tendinitis? Back problems?" The 3 women exchanged glances. "The hotel has a company doctor," Joanne said slowly. "But he usually says it's nothing serious, gives you a painkiller and sends you back to work." Maria nodded, her expression serious. "How many hours a day do you work?" 8, officially, Brenda replied. "But it almost always turns into 10, 12, because if you don't finish your rooms, you can't leave." "And is that overtime paid?" Silence. "Sometimes," Joanne said finally. "Other times, no. Depends on the manager's mood." Maria didn't need to ask which manager that was. She talked with the women for another 20 minutes. She asked about their families, their dreams, their struggles. And they talked, because Maria was one of them. She wore the same uniform, knew the same backaches, the same dry hands, the same exhaustion. When she finally said goodbye, Joanne held her arm gently. "You seem different from most guests. Thank you for asking, for caring. We are all workers," Maria said simply. "We deserve respect." As she and Chloe walked back to the public areas of the hotel, Chloe was quiet, thoughtful. "Can I ask something?" she finally said when they were alone in the elevator. "Of course. Why did you do this? The tour of the back of house, the questions, why?" Maria looked at the young woman. "Because that's where you see the real soul of a hotel, not in the marble lobby or the chandeliers, but in how it treats the people who do the real work." "And what did you see?" I saw dedicated workers doing the best they can with limited resources. I saw efficiency and pride in their work, but I also saw fear. I saw injustice. I saw people being treated as replaceable instead of valuable. Chloe bit her lip. The Grandelsia isn't a bad place to work. Compared to other hotels, it's even good. But it could be better, Maria completed. Yes, much better. The elevator doors opened into the lobby. Maria turned to Chloe. Thank you for the tour. You've been very kind. It was a pleasure, Ms. Valdez. Chloe hesitated. Can I say something? Off the record. Please. I don't know who you really are, but I have a feeling there's more to this story. And whatever it is you're planning, she smiled. I hope it works. Maria smiled back. We'll see. When they parted, Maria didn't go straight back to the suite. Instead, she sat in an armchair in the lobby and watched. The flow of guests, the dynamic between the employees, the way Matthew interacted with different people, obsequious with the rich, dismissive of others. She had seen enough. The Grandelsia was a well-managed hotel in many respects, but it had a culture problem, a problem that started at the top of the chain of command and filtered down, and Maria knew exactly what to do about it. But first, she needed one more piece of information. She took out her cell phone and made a call. Robert, it's me. I need you to send those documents. Yes, the acquisition ones, tomorrow. Straight to the Grandelsia in my name. Will it draw attention? Great, that's exactly what I want. The next morning, Matthew was at the reception desk when a courier delivered a thick envelope addressed to Maria Valdez, Presidential Suite. Ryan accepted the envelope and was about to call the suite when Matthew intercepted him. Let me see that. Ryan hesitated but handed the envelope over. Matthew examined the return address. Dunn and Associates, Corporate Law. His eyebrows furrowed. Why would a cleaner be receiving documents from a corporate law firm? Is there a problem, Mr. Thorne? Ryan asked. No, just curious. He handed the envelope back. Take it up to the suite personally. After Ryan left, Matthew remained thoughtful. Ever since the incident 2 days ago, Maria Valdez had made him uneasy. There was something about her, the way she spoke, the unshakable calm, the way she asked questions during the tour. Questions that weren't from a curious tourist, but from someone who understood hotel operations. And now this. Documents from a law firm. Matthew went back to the computer and pulled up Maria's registration. He read it again. Maria Valdez. Address in Kingston, Knockeyes. Date of birth indicating 58 years. No special notes, but he hadn't checked anything beyond the basics. Maybe it was time to. He opened his browser and typed her name into Google. The first few results showed nothing. Just a few random Maria Valdezes, none relevant. He tried adding Kingston, NYS to the search. Still nothing significant. He added hotels, and then he found something. Fans' old news story from 5 years ago in a regional paper. Local businesswoman expands her budget hotel chain. The article mentioned a Maria Valdez, owner of the Harbor Light Inn Bao chain, who was opening her 5th establishment. Matthew read the article twice. Then he searched for more information on the Harbor Light Inn. He found a simple but professional website. The chain now had 12 locations in small and medium-sized cities. Budget-friendly 2-star hotels focused on workers and lower-middle-class families. At the bottom of the page, a name, owner and founder, Maria Valdez. The same woman he had tried to humiliate. Matthew felt his stomach drop. She wasn't just a cleaner with some saved-up cash. She was a businesswoman, the owner of a hotel chain. Why hadn't she said so? Why did she let him treat her that way? Unless it was deliberate. A test. A trap. Matthew felt his blood run cold. What had he done? Publicly humiliated an entrepreneur in the hotel industry. Someone who might have connections, influence. He needed to do damage control. He needed Mr. Thorne. Chloe's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. Are you okay? You look pale. I'm fine, he lied. He closed the browser quickly, just thinking about some things. But his mind was racing. What was Maria Valdez really doing here? Was it a coincidence, revenge, or something else? That afternoon he decided to watch her more closely. Not confront her, not yet, but observe. He saw her when she came down for lunch in the restaurant, noticed how she spoke respectfully with the waiters, thanking them for every small service, how she left a generous tip. He saw her spend the afternoon in the hotel lounge, reading a book, but he also noticed that she was observing everything around her, the flow of guests, the staff interactions. She was studying the hotel. In the evening, Matthew saw her talking at length with Chuk and Eleanor Vance vacancies in the hotel bar. The two women seemed to have developed a friendship, and Eleanor was an extremely valuable client, someone with connections in elite circles. The next day, Matthew saw Maria chatting with several employees. Not just casual conversations, but serious ones, asking about working conditions, benefits, job satisfaction. It was as if she were conducting an audit. But why? The answer arrived 3 days later, in a way Matthew never would have expected. It was a Thursday morning when a man in an expensive suit entered the lobby of the Grandelsia. He didn't have a reservation, but there was something in his presence, authority, purpose, that made Matthew approach immediately. "Good morning, sir. May I help you?" The man studied Matthew with penetrating eyes. "I'm Robert Dunn, an attorney. I have a meeting with Ms. Maria Valdez." "Ah, yes." Matthew forced a smile. "Miss Bantet Valdez, EU, is in the presidential suite. If you'd like to wait, I can—" "That won't be necessary. She's expecting me." At that moment, Maria emerged from the elevator, but she was not wearing her cleaner's uniform. She wore a simple but elegant navy blue pantsuit. Her hair, previously hidden under a scarf, was loose and well-styled. She still wore little makeup, but there was a transformation in her, a confidence that had always been there but was now more visible. "Robert," she greeted him with a smile, punctual as always. "Maria," he greeted her respectfully. "I brought the documents as you requested." "Great. Let's go up to the suite. We have a lot to discuss." As the two walked toward the elevators, Matthew couldn't help but overhear part of the conversation. "Is the due diligence complete?" Maria was asking. "Yes, all the figures have been verified. The property is in order. The documents are ready for your signature whenever you decide to proceed." "And the meeting with the corporate office?" "Scheduled for tomorrow at 10. They are anxious to finalize." The elevator doors closed, cutting off the conversation. Matthew stood frozen, his brain working furiously. Due diligence? Property? Meeting with the corporate office? The corporate office? The corporate office of the Grandelsia? No, it couldn't be. He ran back to the reception computer and began to search frantically. Information about the sale of the Grandelsia. The parent company really was selling. He knew that. All the employees knew. There had been rumors for months. But who was buying? The information was limited. The transaction was being handled with discretion. But there was mention of an interested regional hotel investment group. Matthew began to connect the dots. Maria Valdez, owner of a hotel chain, coming to the Grandelsia, taking a tour of the back of house, asking questions, observing operations, talking with employees, receiving documents from lawyers, talking about due diligence, meeting with corporate. She wasn't here as a guest. She was here as a potential buyer. Matthew's face went completely pale. He had to sit down. It all made sense now. Why she had allowed the initial humiliation. Why she didn't reveal who she was. Why she accepted his cruel bet. She was testing the hotel, and more specifically testing him, and he had failed spectacularly. Matthew felt nauseous. If Maria Valdez bought the hotel, he was finished. She would fire him at the first opportunity, and rightly so. After how he had treated her, there would be no mercy. 15 years of his career, 15 years building a reputation, all destroyed in a moment of arrogance. Chloe, noticing Matthew's expression, approached with concern. "Mr. Thorne, are you all right? Do you want me to call someone?" "I'm fine," he said automatically. But he wasn't. He was not fine at all. He needed to do something. But what? Apologize? Too little. Too late. She would never accept it. Confront her. And say what? "Please don't fire me because I'm a prejudiced idiot." Run? Resign before he was fired? Matthew spent the rest of the day in a poorly disguised state of panic. He made mistakes, bumped into things. Rand and Chloe noticed, but they didn't understand why. That night, Matthew couldn't sleep. He lay in the dark, his mind racing in endless circles of regret and fear. The next morning, Friday, at 10 minutes to 10, Maria came down to the lobby. She was dressed formally now. A dark grey suit, low-heeled shoes, a leather briefcase. The lawyer, Robert, was with her. A black car was waiting at the hotel entrance. Matthew watched from his post at reception as they left. Eleanor Vance, who happened to be in the lobby, waved to Maria. "Good luck today," Eleanor said, a knowing smile on her face. "Thank you," Maria replied. "We'll see what the future holds." They left. Matthew couldn't work properly all morning. He was distracted, anxious, gripped by the terror of the unknown. Noon came and went. Then 1 o'clock, 2, 3. At 4:15, Maria returned, alone this time. She entered the hotel, went straight to the elevator and went up to her suite. Matthew waited, but nothing happened. No announcement, no memo. The uncertainty was torturous. Finally, at 5 o'clock, his internal phone rang. It was the presidential suite. "Hello?" he answered, his voice trembling. "Mr. Thorne." Maria's voice was calm, professional. "Could you come up to my suite, please? I have something to discuss with you." Yes, of course. I'll be right up." When he hung up, his hands were shaking. Chloe looked at him with concern. "What's wrong?" "Maria Valdez wants to see me." "And that's bad?" Matthew didn't answer. He just straightened his tie, ran his hands through his hair, and walked to the elevator like a man walking to his own execution. Because, he realized, that's exactly what was about to happen. The door to the presidential suite was ajar when Matthew arrived. He knocked gently on the frame. "Come in, Mr. Thorne," Maria's voice invited. He pushed the door open and entered. Maria was sitting on the sofa, a coffee cup on the table, some documents scattered beside her. She gestured to the armchair opposite her. "Please, sit." Matthew sat, his back rigid, his hands clenched on his knees. He couldn't read Maria's expression. She didn't look angry, but she didn't look friendly either. "Thank you for coming," Maria began. "I imagine you have several questions." Matthew cleared his throat. "I've done some research. I found out who you are. The Harbor Light Inn chain." "Yes. And I've assumed that you're here to buy the Grand Elsia." Maria tilted her head slightly. "A reasonable assumption, and a correct one. Even expecting it, hearing the confirmation felt like a punch to the gut. You've bought the hotel." "Yes. The transaction was finalized this morning. As of Monday, I am officially the new owner of Untouched, the Grand Elsia Hotel." A heavy silence filled the room. "I suppose," Matthew finally said, his voice barely a whisper, "you've called me here to fire me." "Not exactly." Matthew looked up, surprised. Maria took a sip of coffee before continuing. "I called you here to have a conversation. An honest conversation. No masks, no pretenses, just the truth." She leaned forward slightly. "Why did you treat me that way on Monday?" The direct question caught him off guard. Matthew opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come. "Be honest," Maria encouraged him. "We're not in a courtroom. There are no witnesses. It's just you and me. So tell me why." Matthew struggled with himself. Part of him wanted to lie, make excuses, blame someone else. But under Maria's steady gaze, those brown eyes that seemed to see right through him, the truth began to emerge. "Because," he began slowly, "when I looked at you, I saw someone who didn't belong here, someone who was in the wrong place. And that bothered me. Why? Because I've spent 15 years at this hotel. 15 years building a reputation, making it to manager, earning respect." His voice grew more intense. "And I did it by being good at identifying people, knowing who was a VIP and who wasn't, who had money and who didn't, who deserved the best service and who—" He stopped, realizing what he was about to say. "And who didn't deserve it," Maria completed for him. "Because you believe that some people are more worthy than others." Matthew closed his eyes. "Yes, I believed that. I still do, partly. Isn't that how the world works? Some have more, others have less, and those who have more deserve. They deserve privileges, respect, dignity." "Yes, and those who have less." Matthew didn't answer. "You know," Maria said softly, "when I was 18, I came to the city for the first time. My first job interview was at a hotel. Not this one, but similar. I was so nervous. I only had simple clothes, a bad haircut, calloused hands from farm work." She paused, looking out the window. "The manager looked at me the same way you looked at me on Monday, with disdain, with contempt, as if my presence there was offensive. He told me I didn't have a suitable presence to work at the reception, but that maybe, just maybe, they could use me in housekeeping, if I was lucky." Maria turned her gaze back to Matthew. "I took the job because I needed it, because I had no choice. And for 10 years I cleaned rooms while being treated as invisible, like a piece of furniture, like something less than human by people who thought they were better because they had money." Matthew felt shame burning in his chest. "But do you know what I learned in those 10 years?" Maria continued. "I learned that dignity doesn't come from how much you have. It comes from how you treat others. A guest can have $1 million in the bank, But if he treats the housekeeping staff with disrespect, he is poor in character, and a cleaner can have only minimum wage, but if she does her job with pride and treats everyone with kindness, she is rich in spirit. You're right, Matthew said, his voice broken. You're absolutely right, and I was wrong. Completely wrong. Tears began to form in the corners of his eyes. He tried to hold them back, but he couldn't. I am so sorry, he said, and now he was truly crying. I am so sorry for how I treated you, for the cruel bet, for the horrible words, for all the humiliation. You didn't deserve any of that. No one deserves that. Maria said nothing, just watched as Matthew broke down. I know apologizing doesn't change anything, he continued through his sobs. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness, and I completely understand if you fire me, I deserve it. You do deserve it, Maria agreed calmly. Matthew nodded, accepting his fate. But, Maria added, and Matthew looked up, firing you would be easy, and it wouldn't teach you anything. You would just leave here, find another job, and continue being the same person, with the same prejudices, the same judgments, hurting other people in the same way. No, Matthew protested. I would change. I swear I would change. Words, Maria said. Just words. Real change doesn't come from words. It comes from action, from experience, from walking in other people's shoes. She stood up and walked to the window. So I'm not going to fire you, but I am going to transfer you. Transfer me? Maria turned to face him. You will no longer work at reception. Instead, for the next year, you will work at one of my other properties, the Harbour Light Inn, Bass into Kingston. No. Matthew blinked, confused. And there, Maria continued, you will not be a manager. You will be a maintenance assistant. Oh, fixing things, carrying heavy loads, doing manual labor, earning a manual laborer's salary, living as manual laborers live. What? It's a reverse promotion, Maria explained. You will go down several rungs. You will live on a tight budget. You will work with people you used to consider inferior, and you will learn the hard way that dignity has nothing to do with your job title or your salary. Matthew was stunned. 1 year? As a maintenance assistant? Yes. And if, after that year, you have truly changed, if you have learned humility, empathy, respect, then we will re-evaluate. Perhaps there will be a place for you here. In a junior position, of course. You'll have to rebuild your reputation from scratch, but at least it will be a chance. And if I refuse, then you are fired, with no recommendations, and I guarantee that every quality hotel in this city will know exactly why. Your name will be tarnished in the industry. Matthew swallowed hard. It wasn't really a choice. It was a punishment disguised as an opportunity, but an opportunity nonetheless. I accept, he said finally. I accept the transfer. Maria nodded. You start on Monday. Human Resources will handle the details. You'll have 1 week to organize your things here. Matthew stood up, his legs trembling. Can I ask now, why are you doing this? Why are you giving me this chance? Maria looked at him steadily for a long moment. Because, she said slowly, someone gave me a chance once. When I was just a girl from upstate with nothing, someone saw potential where others only saw a cleaner, and that changed my life. She paused. I am not like you, Matthew. I don't believe some people are more valuable than others. I believe everyone deserves dignity. Everyone deserves respect. And yes, even people who have made serious mistakes deserve a second chance, if they are willing to do the hard work necessary to change. Matthew felt new tears begin to roll. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for the opportunity. I won't waste it. I promise you. I hope you don't, Maria said, because if you do waste it, there won't be a third chance. Matthew nodded, turned to leave, but stopped at the door. Were you really a cleaner? He asked. Yes, for 10 years. And you know what? They were the 10 most important years of my life. They taught me more about humanity, about hard work, about respect than any college degree ever could. And you still clean rooms, even as the owner of hotels. Every week, Maria confirmed. Because I never want to forget where I came from. I never want to lose the connection with the people who do the real work. And I never want to become someone who looks down on others. Matthew absorbed that. You are an extraordinary person. No, Maria corrected kindly. I am just a person who remembers that we are all human. You can be that person too, if you choose to be. Matthew left the suite with his thoughts swirling. Fear of the future, yes. Shame for the past, of course. But also, for the first time in a long time, something that might be hope. The news of the Grandelsia's Qun. Change in ownership spread quickly among the employees. On Monday morning, Maria called a general staff meeting in the hotel's ballroom. Everyone was nervous. Changes in ownership usually meant layoffs, restructuring, uncertainty. When Maria entered the room, still in her professional suit, no longer the cleaner's uniform, an expectant silence fell over the group. She looked around. She recognized faces. Chef Antoine, Veras from the laundry, Ricky Ma, the kind room service waiter, Joanne, Brenda and Crystal from the housekeeping team, Chloe and Ryan from reception, and so many others. "Good morning," Maria began, her voice clear but welcoming. "My name is Maria Valdez, and as of today I am the new owner of this hotel." Murmurs rippled through the room. "I know that change is frightening," she continued. "I know you are worried about your jobs, your futures, so I will be direct. No one here will be fired, at least not without just cause and due process." A visible wave of relief washed over their faces. "But there will be changes," Maria went on, "because I have seen things here that need to be corrected. Not in the rooms or the physical structure. The hotel is beautiful, but in the culture, in the way people are treated." She walked along the front of the room, making eye contact with different people. First change, all temporary employees will become permanent, with full benefits, health insurance, transit passes, meal allowances, the same for everyone. Surprise, hope. Second change, the housekeeping workload will be reduced from 15 rooms per day to 12. Overtime will always be paid. No exceptions. Joanne covered her mouth, emotional. Third change, we will implement a training and development program. Any employee interested in growing, learning new skills, advancing in their career, will have the support to do so. Chef Antoine smiled. Fourth change, we will have an anonymous suggestion box and monthly meetings where any employee can express concerns or ideas, and those concerns will be taken seriously. Chloe looked at Ryan, both clearly impressed. "And finally," Maria said, her voice turning more serious, "zero tolerance for disrespect. It doesn't matter if it comes from managers, employees, or guests. Everyone who works here, from the doorman to the executive chef, deserves to be treated with dignity, and that will be non-negotiable." She paused. "You will notice that Mr. Thorne is not present today. He has been transferred. I won't go into details, but know that it was a decision made after careful consideration. The new reception manager will be Chloe Mendes." All eyes turned to Chloe, who went wide-eyed with shock. Chloe has demonstrated integrity, compassion, and professionalism during a difficult time. Those are the qualities we value here, and they will be rewarded. Spontaneous applause broke out. Chloe was visibly emotional, tears streaming down her face. Maria spent the next hour answering questions, explaining her vision for the hotel, listening to concerns. It was a conversation, not a monologue, and the employees responded. They saw that this wasn't just a new boss. This was someone who understood, someone who cared, someone who truly saw them. In the following weeks, the promised changes were implemented. Contracts were updated, benefits were activated, workloads were adjusted, training began, and something remarkable happened. The hotel got better, not because the rooms were cleaner, they had always been, not because the food was better, it had always been excellent, but because the employees were happier, and happy employees provided better service. They smiled more, they had more patience, they created better experiences for the guests. Online reviews began to climb. Comments mentioned not only the hotel's luxury, but the warmth of the team, the authenticity of the service, and Maria. She continued to put on her cleaner's uniform once a week, working side by side with Joanne, Brenda, and Crystal, not as a publicity stunt, not to be seen, but because it was who she was. 3 months later, she received a letter. It was from Matthew. "Dear Maria Valdez, I am writing these words from the small apartment I'm renting in Kingston. It's a far cry from the standards I was used to, but it's clean and it's mine. I've been working as a maintenance assistant for 3 months. My days are long. My body aches in ways it never has before. My hands, which used to only type, now have calluses. But I've learned more in these 3 months than in 15 years as a manager. I've learned that the man who fixes the clogged toilet at 3 in the morning is just as valuable as the CEO sleeping in the presidential suite. I've learned that the woman who cleans the bathrooms deserves just as much respect as the woman who uses them. I've learned that dignity isn't something you earn. It's something everyone possesses from birth. I've learned more than anything that I was terribly wrong. About you, about others, about life. I still have 9 months left of my sentence, and while part of me counts the days, another part knows I will need every single one to truly change. Because changing lifelong thought patterns isn't easy. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it yet. Maybe I never will. But I want you to know, your lesson has not been in vain. It's working. I am changing. Thank you for not discarding me. Thank you for believing that even people like me can get better. Respectfully, Matthew. Maria folded the letter carefully. She didn't reply, not yet. Matthew still had a lot of work to do, but she smiled, because change was possible, even for those most lost in their prejudices. And that was worth everything. 6 months passed. The Grandelsia, under its new management, was thriving. Occupancy had increased by 15%. The reviews were consistently 5-star. And most importantly, the team was genuinely happy. Maria had transformed the hotel's culture without destroying its excellence. In fact, the excellence increased because it was now built on a foundation of mutual respect. Chloe, as the new reception manager, was doing exceptionally well. She led with empathy, but also with firmness, and the team respected her deeply. Ricky had been promoted to assistant manager. Vera, from the laundry, was given additional assistance to reduce the workload. Chef Antoine had a larger budget for culinary experimentation, and the 3 housekeepers, Joanne, Brenda, and Crystal, now had more humane schedules while still earning the same pay. Their happiness was visible, but there was one situation Maria needed to resolve. Eleanor Vance sought her out one day for tea in the hotel lounge. "You have transformed this place," Eleanor observed, stirring the sugar in her Earl Grey. "It's extraordinary. The hotel was always luxurious, but now it has a soul." "Thank you," Maria smiled. "Though the credit isn't mine alone. It belongs to the whole team." "Humble as ever," Eleanor laughed. "But there's a reason I asked to speak with you." "Yes? I have some friends, people with considerable resources, and they are impressed with what you've done here. There is interest in investing in your expansion if you're interested." Maria was intrigued. "What kind of expansion?" "More hotels like this, luxurious but with values. Places where service comes not just from training, but from genuine respect." "There is a market for that, Maria, a big market." Maria considered it. It was tempting. "But I don't want to grow too fast," she said slowly. "Quality over quantity, culture over profit. Those things take time to build." "I know," Eleanor nodded, "and that's exactly why my friends are interested. Because you're not just driven by greed, you're driven by a purpose." They talked for hours, exploring possibilities. In the end, Maria agreed to consider it, but on her own terms: sustainable growth, maintenance of values. That night, as Maria worked in her office, she had transformed one of the administrative rooms into her workspace. Chloe knocked on the door. "Sorry to interrupt," Chloe said, "but there's someone here to see you. He says it's personal." "Who?" "Matthew Thorne." Maria was surprised. "Matthew? But isn't he supposed to be in Kingston?" "He is, but he drove here today. He says he needs to talk to you, that it's important." Maria hesitated, then nodded. "Send him in." When Matthew entered, Maria almost didn't recognize him. He had lost weight. His skin was tanned from working in the sun. His hands were clearly the hands of a manual laborer now, calloused, rough. He wore simple clothes, jeans, and a cotton shirt. But it was his face that had changed the most. There was humility there, weariness, but also peace. "Mr. Thorne," Maria greeted him, "this is a surprise." "I apologize for showing up unannounced," he said, his voice softer than she remembered. "But I needed to come in person. Sit down. Would you like some water?" "Coffee?" "Water, please." Maria poured water for them both and sat down. "So, what brings you here?" Matthew took a long drink of water before answering. "I came to apologize, not just to you, although you certainly deserve it, but to the team, to Chloe, to Ricky, to the housekeepers, to everyone I treated poorly during my years here. That's unexpected. It's something I should have done months ago, years ago." He looked at his hands. "But first, I needed to truly change. I didn't want them to be just empty words." "And have you changed?" Matthew thought carefully. "I am changing. It's an ongoing process. Every day I discover new prejudices in myself that I need to confront. But yes, compared to the man I was 6 months ago, I am different. Tell me about it." And Matthew talked about his days as a maintenance assistant, about learning to fix faucets, unclog drains, carry heavy boxes, about earning minimum wage and living in a small apartment, About making friends with other workers he would have previously considered inferior. "There's a guy on the crew, Sir John," Matthew recounted. "He's 30, 3 kids, and works 2 jobs to support his family. When I first met him, my first thought was, why doesn't he just get a better job?" Matthew shook his head. "But then I spent time with him. I found out he didn't finish high school because he needed to work to help his sick mother, that he tries to study at night but is usually too exhausted, that he desperately wants a better life for his kids, but the system seems to conspire against him at every turn." "And now you understand," Maria said softly. "Now I understand that it's not a lack of effort. It's not a lack of character. It's a combination of circumstances, limited opportunities, and yes, prejudices from people like me who close doors before they're even opened." Maria nodded. "Go on." "There's a woman, Francesca. She cleans the rooms just like you used to, and one day I watched her work. The care she takes, how she folds every towel perfectly, even knowing the guest will just use it and throw it on the floor, how she takes pride in her work." Matthew paused, emotional. "And I thought, how many times did I not even notice the work of the housekeepers? How many times did I treat them as invisible, as nothing?" "Many times," Maria said. "It wasn't cruel, it was just the truth." "Many times," Matthew agreed, "and I am deeply ashamed of that." Silence filled the office for a moment. "Did you come all this way just to tell me that?" Maria asked. "No, I came to ask for permission to speak to the team, to apologize to every person I harmed. I don't expect their forgiveness. I just want them to know that I recognize my mistakes." Maria studied him for a long moment. "So do you understand that some may not want to listen, that some may still be very hurt? I understand and I accept that, but I need to try." "Very well. Tomorrow is Monday. There's a monthly team meeting in the morning. You can speak then." Matthew looked surprised. "You're going to allow it?" "You asked respectfully. You've acknowledged your mistakes." "Yes, I will allow it. Thank you." He stood to leave, but Maria stopped him. "Matthew?" "Yes?" "Your 9 months aren't over yet. You still have 3 left. Why did you come now?" He smiled sadly. "Because I realized I didn't need to wait to start making amends. Change doesn't happen on a schedule. It happens when you're ready, and I was ready now." Maria smiled. "You've learned well." The next morning the ballroom was full again. The team arrived for the monthly meeting, unaware they would have a special visitor. When Maria entered, followed by Matthew, there was a collective gasp. Some faces showed shock, others anger, some curiosity. Maria took the small stage. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Before we begin our usual agenda, we have a visitor who has asked to speak with you." Matthew Thorne, the former reception manager of this hotel. She gestured for Matthew to come up. He did, visibly nervous. For a moment he just stood there, looking at the faces in front of him. Faces of people he had known for years, but had never truly seen. He began, his voice failing. He cleared his throat. "I don't know where to start except perhaps with the simple truth I was wrong." Silence. "For 15 years, I worked in this hotel, and for 15 years, I treated many of you with disrespect, with disdain, as if you were less important than the guests, less important than me, less important as human beings." Chloe, sitting in the front row, listened intently. "I justified it by telling myself I was maintaining standards, that I was being professional, that this is how luxury hotels worked." He shook his head. "But they were lies. Lies I told myself so I wouldn't have to face the truth, that I was prejudiced, arrogant, and cruel." Joanne, Brenda, and Crystal exchanged glances. "Maria Valdez gave me a chance I didn't deserve. Instead of just firing me, which would have been completely justifiable, she transferred me. She put me in a position where I would have to experience the life that you live. Manual labor, low wages, being treated as invisible." He paused, emotional. "And do you know what I discovered? I discovered that you are the strongest, most dedicated, most dignified people I have ever met. You do work that is essential but undervalued. You keep this hotel running but rarely get the credit. You deserve all the respect in the world, and I gave you nothing but contempt." Tears began to roll down his face. "So I came here today to say, I'm sorry. From the bottom of my heart, I am sorry. To Chloe, who I overloaded with extra work and never acknowledged. To Ricky, who I criticized unfairly. To Joanne, Brenda, Crystal, and all the other housekeepers I treated as invisible. To Chef Antoine, to Vera, to every single one of you." He looked directly at the audience. "I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I have changed. I am changing, and I promise that never again for the rest of my life will I treat another human being the way I treated you. Total silence in the room. Then, slowly, Chloe stood up. She walked to the stage, stepped up, and stood in front of Matthew. For a moment, she just looked at him. Matthew waited, not knowing what was coming, and then Chloe extended her hand. I accept your apology, she said simply. Matthew shook her hand, tears flowing freely now. Thank you. Thank you. Chloe stepped down. Then Ricky came up. Then Chef Antoine. Then Vera. One by one, members of the team came onto the stage, shook Matthew's hand, offered their forgiveness. Not everyone. Some remained seated, their wounds still too fresh, and Matthew respected that. He didn't push. He didn't ask for more than each person was willing to give. When it was finally over, Maria stepped back onto the stage. Thank you, Matthew, she said. And thank you all for listening, for considering, and some for forgiving. This is what it means to be a team, acknowledging mistakes, offering second chances, growing together. The meeting continued with regular business, but there was a different energy in the room. Something had shifted, not completely healed, but beginning to. Afterward, Maria and Matthew had coffee in the lounge. How do you feel? Maria asked. Exhausted, relieved, grateful. He smiled weakly. Lighter somehow, like a weight I've been carrying for years is finally gone. That's the weight of pride and prejudice, Maria said. When you let it go, there's room for something better to grow. Wisdom, Matthew observed. You have a lot of it. Not wisdom, just experience, from having lived on both sides. Matthew took a sip of coffee. Can I ask something? What are you going to do with me when the 9 months are over? That depends, Maria replied. On what you want. Honestly, and I like the work in Kingston. It's not glamorous, it doesn't pay well, but it's real. And the people there, they're good, genuine. You want to stay? I do, but maybe not as a maintenance assistant forever. He hesitated. I thought maybe I could study. Take a real management course, but this time with the right mindset, and then perhaps work my way up. Not to be the manager of a luxury hotel, but maybe the manager of a simple inn, where I can apply what I've learned, where I can lead with respect. Maria smiled. That can be arranged. We have a scholarship program for employees who want to study. You qualify, even after everything? Especially after everything, because you've proven that change is possible, and that's the most valuable lesson of all. A full year had passed since Maria Valdez first stepped into the Grandelsia Hotel wearing her cleaner's uniform. The changes implemented had solidified. The hotel was not only thriving financially, but it had become a model in the industry for how to combine luxury with human values. Maria was in her office when she received an unexpected call. Missy Valdez, this is Frank Almeida from the Hoteliers Association. We would like to invite you to a special event, an award for excellence in hotel management. The Grandelsia is going to be honored. Maria accepted the invitation, but without great emotion. Awards were nice, but the real prize was seeing her team happy and thriving. The event would be in 2 weeks, at the Grandelsia itself, an irony that was not lost on anyone. The night of the event arrived. The hotel's ballroom was luxuriously decorated. People from the hotel industry from all over the country were present. Directors, managers, owners, investors. Maria wore an elegant but simple lead-grey dress. Her hair, now with more visible silver streaks, was elegantly styled. But she still wore little makeup, and there was a simplicity about her that contrasted with the glamour around her. Eleanor Vance was present, radiant in an evening gown. Chloe, invited as part of the winning team, wore her best dress. Ricky, Chef Antoine, Vera, all there celebrating. The master of ceremonies began the proceedings. Various awards were given, speeches were made, and finally, the main event arrived. And now, the MC announced, the award for excellence in hotel management goes to the Grandelsia Hotel and its owner, Maria Valdez. Applause filled the room. Maria went up on stage to accept the award, a heavy, beautiful crystal sculpture. Thank you, she began, her voice clear and firm. This honor means a lot, but I want to be clear. This award does not belong to me. It belongs to every member of the Grandelsia team who works every day to make this hotel special. She paused, looking at the audience. When I bought this hotel a year ago, it was already luxurious. It already had 5 stars. It already offered exemplary service, but it was missing something fundamental: respect. Some faces in the audience looked uncomfortable. Respect for all workers, not just the ones the guests see. respect for housekeepers, cleaners, maintenance assistants, the people who do the real work, but are frequently treated as invisible. Maria held up the award. This trophy is beautiful, but do you know what's more beautiful? Seeing Joanne, one of our housekeepers, smile because she finally has adequate time for lunch. Seeing Vera from the laundry relax because she's no longer overworked. Seeing Chloe Kaunais grow from a receptionist to a manager because someone finally recognized her potential. The room was completely silent now, everyone listening intently. When I was young, Maria continued, I worked as a cleaner for 10 years. I was treated as less than human by people who thought they were better, and I promised myself that if I ever had power, I would use it differently. I would use it to lift people up, not to diminish them. She looked directly at several hotel owners present. This award is an honor, but it's also a challenge to the entire hotel industry. We can have luxurious hotels that also treat their staff with dignity. We can have high profits and fair wages. We can have service excellence that comes not from fear, but from mutual respect. It's not just possible, she declared firmly. It's necessary, because until we value every worker, from the CEO to the cleaner, we will not be truly excellent. We will just be a facade. The applause started slowly, then grew. Some clapped enthusiastically, others more hesitantly, but everyone clapped. Maria came down from the stage and was immediately surrounded by people wanting to talk, network, learn more. But she noticed a figure in the shadows, someone who wasn't approaching, just watching. She excused herself politely and walked over. It was an older man, perhaps 70, with completely white hair and an impeccable suit. He had a contemplative expression. Good evening, Maria greeted him. We haven't been introduced. Edward Mendez, he said, extending his hand. I was the previous owner of the Grandel Sierra, before I sold it to the corporation 15 years ago. Ah, Maria shook his hand. A pleasure to meet you. Your speech was provocative, Edward said slowly. Some of the owners here were not very happy. I imagined as much. But it was correct, Edward sighed. When I ran the Grandelsia, it was different. Smaller, more personal. I knew every employee by name. We celebrated birthdays together. It was a family. He looked around the grand ballroom. But when it became too big for me to manage, I sold it. And slowly, over the years, I heard that the spirit had changed. It became more corporate, colder. And that saddened me, but I didn't know what to do about it. And now, Maria asked, now I see that you have brought back something that was lost. Not in the same way, times have changed, but the spirit, the respect, the humanity. He smiled. I am glad the Grandelsia is in your hands. Thank you. That means a lot. Edward hesitated. May I give you a piece of advice? From an old man to a younger one. Please, don't lose this as you grow. Because you are going to grow, your speech has already generated investor interest all over this room. But it's easy to lose the soul when you get bigger. Stay vigilant. Keep getting your hands literally dirty cleaning rooms. Never forget where you came from. I won't forget, Maria promised, because it's not just where I came from, it's who I am. Edward nodded in approval and walked away. The rest of the night was a whirlwind of conversations, business cards, business proposals. But Maria maintained her composure, her clarity of purpose. When the event finally ended and the last guests had left, Maria stood alone in the empty ballroom. Chloe joined her. That was an incredible night, Chloe said. You were incredible. We were, Maria corrected. Team, remember? None of this would be possible without every single person, Chloe smiled. You never change, do you? Always giving the credit to others, because it's true. I'm not special, Chloe. I'm just someone who remembers her humanity and tries to live according to it every day. Anyone can do the same, but few do. Then we need to show them it's possible. Be the example. And maybe, slowly, others will follow. They walked out of the ballroom together. The hotel was quiet now, most of the guests asleep. Only a few night shift employees worked silently. Maria stopped to greet each one, ask how they were, thank them for their work. Because that's what true leaders do, not just when there are cameras or awards, but especially when no one is watching. 2 years after that first day, Maria stepped into the Grandelsia, wearing her cleaner's uniform. Much had changed, but much also remained the same. The hotel was thriving. It now had the best ratings of any 5-star hotel in the country, but more important than the numbers, it had a reputation, the place where employees were treated, as well as the guests. That reputation attracted a different kind of guest, people who valued not just luxury but ethics, who wanted to know that their comfort didn't come at the cost of labor exploitation. And surprisingly, those people didn't just exist. There were many of them. The Harbour Light Inn DAOs expanded too carefully, growing to 20 locations. Not large luxury hotels, but clean, comfortable, accessible places where workers were valued and guests felt at home. Matthew completed his year as a maintenance assistant, and his reintegration was gradual. He studied hotel management again, this time with humility and a renewed purpose. He now managed one of the Harbour Light Inns in a small city, and his transformation was genuine. The employees under his leadership respected him because he respected them first. Chloe thrived as the manager of the Grandelsia. She led with the same balance of firmness and compassion she had learned from watching Maria, and when the opportunity arose, she promoted Ricky to assistant director, continuing the cycle of valuing internal talent. It was a Wednesday when Maria, as she did every week, put on her cleaner's uniform and went up to help with the room cleaning. She found Joanne Wantuo on the 10th floor, restocking her cart. "Good morning, Ms. Maria." Joanne greeted her with a genuine smile. She didn't call Maria boss or ma'am. It was Ms. Maria, a term of respect and affection. "Good morning, Joanne. How are the grandkids?" Growing so fast, little Julia started school this year. They chatted as they worked side by side, cleaning a suite that had just been vacated. Maria vacuumed while Joanne changed the sheets. They worked in perfect sync. "You know," Joanne said as she fluffed the pillows, "I still pinch myself sometimes. Working here now with you, it's so different from how it used to be." "Different how?" "Before I was invisible, just another cleaner. But now I feel like I matter, that my work is valued, that I am valued." Maria stopped the vacuum and looked at Joanne. "You always mattered. The difference is that now someone is saying it." Joanne wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. "Thank you for everything." "There's nothing to thank me for. You deserve respect." "Everyone does." They finished cleaning in comfortable silence. When the room was spotless, Joanne did something unexpected. She hugged Maria. "You've changed my life," Joanne whispered, "and the lives of so many others. Never forget that." Maria returned the hug. "And you all keep me grounded. You remind me why I do what I do." They separated, both with tears in their eyes but smiling. That afternoon, Maria received a special visitor in her office. It was a young woman, perhaps 20, nervous, holding a folder. "Ms. Valdez, I'm Beatrice. I'm studying hotel management at the university. My professor told me I should talk to you." "Sit down, Beatrice. What can I do for you?" The young woman opened her folder, revealing papers full of notes. "I'm doing my thesis on you, on how you transformed the Grandelsia, on your management model. It's revolutionary." Maria smiled. "It's not revolutionary. It's just human." "But that's it." Beatrice brightened. "It's revolutionary because it's so simple, treating people with respect, paying fair wages, valuing workers. Why do so few do it?" "Good question. Perhaps because short-term profit seems more important than long-term sustainability. Perhaps because it's easier to see people as resources than as humans. Or perhaps," Maria paused thoughtfully, "because many who reach positions of power forget what it was like to have no power." Beatrice was taking notes frantically. "Can I ask, what keeps you connected? How do you not forget?" "I still do the work," Maria replied simply. "Every week I clean rooms. I talk to the workers. I listen to their concerns. I don't delegate everything. I keep my hands literally on the real work. Because the moment I stop doing that, I run the risk of disconnecting." "And the initial incident? When you arrived at the hotel dressed as a cleaner and were humiliated?" "It was painful," Maria admitted, "but it was also enlightening. It showed me exactly what needed to change. If I had come as a businesswoman in a suit, everyone would have been polite, but I wouldn't have seen the true culture, the true face of the hotel. So it was a deliberate test. It was a revelation of truths, for me and for them." They talked for 2 hours. Beatrice asked insightful questions, and Maria answered honestly. In the end, the young woman gathered her papers, clearly inspired. "Thank you, Ms. Valdez. You are an inspiration. Proof that business can have a soul. Remember that when you have your own hotel someday," Maria said. "And if you need an internship or an opportunity, look me up. There's always room for people who want to make a difference." Beatrice left, beaming. That night, Maria was alone in her suite. She had kept the presidential as her personal space when she was at the hotel. She looked out the window at the illuminated city below. She thought about her journey, from the poor girl from upstate to the invisible cleaner, to the respected businesswoman. It had been long, difficult, full of obstacles, but it had been worth it. Not for the money, although financial security was good, not for the fame. She never sought the spotlight, but for the impact, for the lives changed, for the Joannes, Chloes, and Rickies who now had opportunities they wouldn't have had, for the Matthews who learned that change was possible. Her phone rang. It was Robert, her lawyer and longtime friend. "Maria, I have news. That investor family from Chicago, they don't just want to invest. They want to learn your model. They want to transform their own hotels using your principles. Are they willing to truly change, not just superficial marketing? They seem serious. They're asking for you to consult, to train their managers, to implement the culture." Maria considered it. It was tempting to spread the model, to prove it worked on a large scale. "Set up a meeting," she decided, "but make it clear. I don't negotiate on values. Either we do it right with real changes or I don't do it at all." "Understood." After hanging up, Maria returned to the window. Below, she saw a bus stop. A few people got off, among them a woman in a simple uniform, her hair pulled back, a tired expression, probably finishing her work shift, heading home. A few years ago, that could have been her. In fact, in many ways, it still was. Maria picked up her plastic bag, the same one she had brought that first day, mended but still functional, and held it. A symbol of where she came in, a reminder to never forget. She wouldn't forget, because her story wasn't about a cleaner who became an owner. It was about a person who maintained her humanity while she rose, about someone who used power to lift others up, not to oppress them, about the simple but profound truth: dignity is priceless, respect is not a privilege, and every human being deserves to be treated with honor. That was the lesson. That was the transformation, not just hers, but of everyone around her. Maria looked out at the city one last time, then turned toward the bed. Tomorrow would be another day, more work, more challenges, more opportunities to make a difference. And she was ready, because in the end, what mattered wasn't how high you climbed. It was how many hands you extended to help others climb with you. And in that, Maria Valdez had succeeded beyond all measure.